Illinois faces Duke in week 2. That will be their big non-conference test of their 3 non-con games to kick off the year. This will be on the first Saturday of September 6th. It'll be at 11 a.m. again, as I mentioned earlier. Illinois and Duke have only met twice ever in football. I found that incredibly interesting, and they were both quite long ago. The last time they met was October 23rd, 1965. And Illinois won that game at home 28-14. That is the only time Duke has ever been in Champaign. The only other time Illinois has visited Duke, which they will be doing on September 6th, was on October 4th, 1958. And they lost that game 15-13. So they're 0-1 all time at Duke, but it's been when they meet, it'll be just shy of 60 years since Illinois and Duke have played each other in football, and 67 years since Illinois last traveled to Durham. So I found that rather surprising. I don't know about you guys that these two programs haven't met in so long, just because they've been part of power conferences since those days, right, when they met in the 50s and 60s. So I find it shocking that they've only met twice. They've barely met at all. So there's not really that much team history that we can really look at to try and determine how this one's going to work out, right? I mean, you can't use a game from 1965, 1958 to really judge anything. It's really, all it is really is just kind of a fun fact that these teams have not played in almost 60 years. It'll be a month shy of 60 years when they meet. So I certainly found that interesting. So let's take a look at Duke's recent history then, since to find them playing against Illinois, we had to go way back. So in 2024, they had a really good season. They went 9-4, 5-3 in the ACC. I know the ACC was not that strong, but again, by Duke football standards, Duke is not really thought of as a football school. I don't really think I needed to tell anyone listening to this that fact. But so 9-4 for Duke, really good. It was only the 4th 9 or more win season in program history. And the other one, or another one rather, not the other one, but another one was in 2022. So this program has only very recently seen this kind of success. They did play Northwestern. They've played Northwestern each of the last 4 seasons. I don't know why that is. I find that very interesting. It was like a double home and home. So they beat them in overtime in Evanston. That was their one Big Ten opponent and the only common opponent that they had with Illinois. So Northwestern certainly gave them a much tougher time than they did Illinois. Other notable games from last year, though, for Duke, they lost by 1 point in overtime to SMU. That was their only loss at home. They were 5-1 at home. And again, 1 point to a playoff team at SMU. I know dudes in the comments are going to be like, SMU's not a playoff team. They were. I mean, just because they shouldn't have been in the playoff doesn't mean that they weren't a playoff team. So that is a playoff team that Duke just narrowly couldn't take down. It was an overtime game. They did play Miami as well. Their only other ranked opponents. The only other ranked opponent in the ACC was Miami. They did have one more, which I'll get to in a second. They got smoked. They played Ole Miss, too. That was their SEC opponent in the Gator Bowl. They got absolutely blasted. They lost the Gator Bowl 52-20 to the Rebels there. So they were 0-3 against ranked opponents last year. 2 of them blowouts. So that's not a great look for them, especially playing I see them struggling against Northwestern, right? Yes, they won, but double overtime. Northwestern, you were struggling in that game if you had to go to double overtime against 2024 Northwestern, let's be honest. And then getting smoked by Ole Miss, too. I mean, Illinois also drew an SEC opponent that was ranked higher than Ole Miss was by the end of the season, right? South Carolina just missed those playoffs, and Illinois was able to take them down. And Duke clearly was no match for Ole Miss. So I look at that. Also, just considering the fact that Duke was in the ACC, that this, that 9-win season for them doesn't really compare to the similar season that Illinois had. Illinois had a much more difficult schedule, and against the only similar opponent they had, they crushed a team that gave Duke trouble. So looking at those matchups, that does make me feel good overall about Duke. I guess facing Duke, I guess I should say. But I mean, they didn't do bad for losing Riley Leonard last year. Didn't do poorly, I should say. 23, when they did have Riley, they were 8-5, actually, went 4-4. So they actually improved by a game. But they were 6-1 at home. The only thing that does worry me, besides these similar matchups, is their play at home. 2024, 5-1 at home. 2023, 6-1 at home. 2022, another 9-4 season, 5-1 at home. The last time they had a losing record at home then would be 2021, and they were very bad that year just overall. They were 3-9 and 0-8 in the ACC, but yet those 3 wins all came as non-conference wins at home. They were 3-4 at home still, which is very respectable home slate given that you only won 3 games. 2020, that was the furthest I went back. That was a disaster for them. They were 2-9 and 1-9 in the conference. And then they were 1-4 at home. But recently they've been on the rise, and their home schedule, they've only lost 1 game at home each of the last 3 years. So hopefully that is the Illinois game this year. They're very similar to Illinois in the sense that I saw a lot of parallels looking at them just by the fact that they're on the rise and they're typically thought of as a basketball school. Right? I mean, that's really probably where the similarities would end. In terms of roster, their roster truly isn't that similar. But that's just my take on it. I kind of see these 2 programs in similar places, but Illinois, being a Big Ten school, I think has a lot more going for them than Duke does. Even still, that's just my take on it. Duke's roster, though, so head coach Manny Diaz, this is only he'd be entering his 2nd season as the Duke head coach. He did a very good job in his first year, obviously. He's 30-18 career as a head coach. He's jumped around a few places, had a lot of big roles at a lot of big schools. He was a Miami head coach from 2019 to 2021. He was also a Penn State defensive coordinator in 22 and 23. And he's had some other defensive coordinator jobs as well. He was at Texas in 2011 and 2013. He was at Mississippi State in 2010, and then he came back again in 2015, and then back at Miami before he got the head coaching job. He was a defensive coordinator there as well in 2016 through 2018. So he's a very defensive-minded coach since he's had these defensive coordinator jobs. And he has the Duke team last year, their biggest strength were their defense. It was their front 7 and their secondary, both very solid overall. I mean, there really wasn't a weak spot on that defense. They were 2nd in tackles for loss per game with 8.9. They were 2nd in fumble recoveries with 14. They were 4th in sacks with 3.3 per game. And they were 7th in turnovers forced in 27. That's a really good mark. And every defense that Diaz has coached since 2016, when he took that Miami defensive coordinator job, he has been a defensive coordinator or head coach every year since 2016. His defenses have been top 10 in tackles for loss every single one of those years. He's done that at different programs. So this is a really good defense. It's certainly going to test Illinois' offense early in the season. And I really like that they're getting a tough road test ahead of the Indiana game. Before we go, we still got a few minutes here. I'm going to talk about some key players you're going to want to know as well on Duke. This is according to Ball Durham. I really like that name on Fansided. This is a Duke blog. that I did some research on. So the number one returning player, these are their top 5 returning players that they determined. I'm going to trust them because I still don't know that much about Duke. I only have the research I've pulled this week. Cornerback Chandler Rivers. He's a senior. He was ranked the 7th best returning DB in all of college football by ESPN. 54 tackles, 8 pass deflections, 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and 24. Very good. He could have been a day 2 draft pick, but he turned that down to return and try to get himself up to first round value. Safety Terry Moore then was ranked number 2. He is a senior. He's the highest rated returning safety in the entire country, according to Pro Football Focus. That's why I kind of thought it was weird that they had him ranked number 2. He had 4 interceptions that led the team. He was 4th in tackles, 271. He's ridiculously good in that secondary along with Rivers. Then you got a wide receiver. This will be an interesting guy to watch. And certainly reveals what I see as a bit of a weakness in this Duke roster. This is wide receiver Keyshawn Brown. He's a sophomore. He was their wide receiver 3 last year, but their wide receivers, our top 2 were taken in the NFL draft, just like Illinois' were. That was weird to say, Illinois. I think that's correct. Yeah, they're correct. That is correct. I said Illinois. Anyway, that sounded wrong when it came out of my mouth. I'm sorry. The Illini, let's say that. The Illini receivers also gone to the NFL draft. So he had 41 receptions for 445 yards. And he had 2 touchdowns as well. That's their number 1 guy. That's not worrying me too much, right? Because Illinois was able to fill that gap with transfers like Hudson Clement, Justin Bowick, proven transfers as well. Shouldn't be too worried about. There are some transfers coming in for them. They have a wide receiver, Andrew Anthony from Oklahoma. He used to be at Michigan. I don't know if you guys would recognize that name because he didn't do a whole lot at Michigan. I certainly didn't even know who that was. His first career reception while he was at Michigan, though, was 93 yards for a touchdown. That's the only really cool stat I found on him. He'll definitely get some playing time as well, since, again, Duke's wide receiver room was gutted, but I think Illinois did a much better job of filling theirs. I mean, we will only have to wait and see when the season comes around, but that's what I'm thinking there. Number 4, then, is a running back, Jaquez Moore. He's a senior. He missed most of last year. He had an injury in week 2 and didn't come back. His rushing inconsistency was another big issue for Duke, right? Their offense certainly held them back last year, and Illinois' defense, that returning defense, is certainly not going to do them any favors in week 2. But his return will certainly help them with that. And then last is linebacker Trey Freeman. He's a senior. He helped lead that really good front 7 as well. They were, again, 2nd in the nation in tackles for loss. They had 116 total last year as a unit, and they were 4th in sacks with 43, and he's the leader of that unit. He's 5th on the team with 67 tackles as well. Another important player to know that wasn't on that list is their quarterback. Darian Mensah is transferring from Tulane, who, ironically, Duke will play against. They will be at Tulane week 3 right after this Illinois game. Because Duke lost their starter again in 2024. So Mensah is their new starting quarterback. Tulane last year, 2,723 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. That was on 189 of 287 passing. He also ran a bit. He had 132 yards and a touchdown on 60 rushes. He's only a sophomore. He was ESPN's number 3 ranked player overall in the transfer portal, which is pretty insane. That Duke landed a quarterback of that caliber. That's very surprising. He's also unofficially one of the highest paid players in all of college football with NIL. He's making $8 million over the next 2 years at Duke, which is crazy. And then, so he's certainly dangerous. I mean, obviously very talented. However, that'll only be his 2nd week with the program. So compared to a seasoned vet like Altmaier, who's been with Illinois for years, I think they will still have the advantage at the quarterback position. I'm certainly interested in seeing Mensah play, though, with Duke. Kind of out of time here. So yeah, overall, my take on Duke, they're a good team, right? And this is gonna be a good win for Illinois should they get it. I really like a road test, not too long before the Indiana game. I really like that in the non-conference. Kind of have like a warm-up game with Western Illinois. Then you got the big one against Duke, and then you have another not quite as relaxed, but still an easier game at home against Western Michigan, who we'll be talking about next week. And then you get the Indiana game. So I really like this test. I think this game and winning this game, which I certainly think they can, based off all the reasons I mentioned earlier, just some, weak spots in Duke's offense and running back and wide receiver. That's not going to do them any favors. Inexperienced quarterback who doesn't know the system compared to Illinois. And then, there's just the recent matchups they had last year too. Just wasn't crazy impressed with them and their resume that they built last year, even though they were 9-4. I certainly don't think it compares to Illinois or any other competitive Big Ten team's resume. So I think this is a win as well. I think this is a 2-0 start for Illinois, and I think this is the perfect test that they need 2 weeks ahead of the Indiana game. But let me know what you guys think about this Duke matchup. It is certainly one of the pivotal matchups of the year. Let me know what you guys think.